So we are in the final week of our series that we have called Rediscover Christmas. And what we found is that it's very easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of the season and just kind of get lost in everything that the world has to offer, and then we find ourselves kind of missing what actually needs to be focused on. So we said, let's take a step back and let's see if we can't rediscover some of the things that we have found within our life that maybe we just kind of missed on, and let's dive into what the Bible teaches. So it started our first week by taking the message that was given from the messenger, which was the angel, and the angel shared with us that it's God's glory, and that through that we get God's will, and between that we get God's peace. So God promises each one of us peace whenever we focus upon Him, and there's this will that He has for each one of us. And the next week we took a look at the wise men and how the wise men had literally, for 400 years, God hadn't even spoken. No one had heard from Him as far as the prophets or any of those other kind of things. And so for 400 years He was silent. And so there was a way that people were looking for, and they were seeing when they could see God. There was these wise men from the east that saw a star, and they literally came to see the baby, the child, the young Tyler, whatever, however way you want to look at it, Jesus. And they came to visit Him, and through this sign, God all of a sudden had shown back up. And so this last week we talked about it as far as from a giving standpoint, is that each of us has an opportunity to give, but we want to be able to give because the time we give the most every year is December. And whether it's of our extras or whether it comes from our heart and our blessings, whatever way it might be, the bottom line is at the end of the day is that we want it to become something second nature, so that we're not only giving during Christmas, but we're also giving throughout the year. And so this week it leads us to the last part. We're here as far as rediscovering Christmas, and this is the last week. This past weekend, of course, everyone's trying to get their last minute shopping in. And I had shared with my kids, listen, I'm taking your mom on a date on this Friday. So I made sure my oldest was going to be back, and that all the kids would be there, and that we had dinner ready for them, and they were good to go. When I say dinner, like I cooked a really nice dinner. I had them order pizza, and then that way they were ready, and at the end I could go on a date. So the idea was we're going to go shopping, and then after going shopping, we were going to go to the second place. And then after the second place, we would come back and go shopping again. I don't know that it's the best plan in the world if you ever want to try this, but the place we went to was called the Clifton Mill. And it's down, if you're going towards Cedarville, it's kind of close to Cedarville University. And all I saw was that I saw a thing online where it had the best light shows in America for Christmas. And so I just happened to go through it, and it was talking about all the ones in the West and all these bigger places. And then it was in Clifton, Ohio, Yellow Springs, Ohio, which I'd never heard of. So I looked it up on a map, and I'm like, hey, it's about an hour past this, and so I'll trick her and tell her to go shopping. And then after that, then we'll go to this place, and then if we have to, we can come back and go shopping. So of course, it got to Thursday, and I guess some people just don't like surprises. I was like, where are we going? And I go, we're going, and she's like, but where? And I go, we're going on a date. And she said, but where? And I go, someplace. And, you're trying to avoid it without lying and all that kind of stuff. And finally I said, just trust me, we're going to this place. So I have her trust me, and then the last thing she said, this is always a pressure for any husband, so wives, if you never want to say this again, God bless you, and we'll love you for it. This is the thing she said, this better be good. Right? And so now, listen, all I've done is research it online. I've read some reviews from people, and every person online said, hey, this was good, and this was fun, and this was neat, and all that kind of stuff. So all the pictures, they show it, and it looks like this massive complex. I called the guy out and said, hey, tell me a little bit about it. He kind of gives me the lowdown. He's like, listen, get here at 5 o'clock. It's on a Friday. Monday to Thursday is not bad, but you got to get here at 5. Then get in line, but at 6, you either got to be on the patio or you got to be outside. I'm like, okay, what happens at 6? He goes, well, that's kind of the surprise, is that the whole lighting thing. So there's 4 million lights in this place. And so if you have a tree that has 500 lights, that's like 8,000 Christmas trees. So in my mind, this place has to be huge, right? So we show up, we go walking in, and it's not nearly, the pictures, they must use wide angle and all that kind of stuff. Like, oh no, what do we get ourselves into? But everything was super, super nice. And then we were like, let's go grab a bite to eat. So we went and, spent $6 on a 40-cent, thing of soup, and then had cornbread with it, and did all, kind of rustic stuff. And we were done. As we were getting up, we were starting to walk out, and there was a Santa shop next to us. So we were going to a Santa shop, and all of a sudden this lady gets up, and she looked like she had seen a ghost. And she starts stepping back, and she's kind of looking at me, but she's not looking at me, one of those kind of things. So of course I start looking around, and there's just Deanna behind me, and she's about ready to have a heart attack. And I'm like, something's going on, something big's happening. And here what happened was, kind of rustic place, a spider was coming down right above her head, and those legs were just flailing away. So I got to make a choice, right? Do I kill the spider? Do I smack it? Ladies, if this spider's coming down over your head, do you want me to kill the spider? Who wants me to kill the spider? Okay? Who wants me to let the spider live? Just guys, okay? And who is like, just walk away and say, hey, good luck, lady. Because that's what I did. Alright? Like I gave one of these, no, I didn't. But it's like, wow. So she literally, her whole family was like, watch the spider, ooh, you know, that kind of stuff. So I took 2 napkins, and I just went like this, and I brought the spider, and Deanna's like, good job, way to kill it. I go, oh no, it's still alive. And she's like, we are getting out of here. So we got out of there, and we let the spider live because, you know, we're Christians and all, that's somewhere in the Bible. And then we went down, we decided we were going to go to the Santa shop. So we go walk into the Santa shop, and as we're going to walk into the Santa shop, it's like all of a sudden everyone wanted to go there. There's like 15 people in line behind us. And as I'm looking in, there's a head this big hanging on the wall, and I'm assuming it's Santa because it's the Santa shop. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that thing is freaking me out because it was just the head of Santa. Like, there was no body or anything with it. Just like, and I'm like, oh my God. I turned to Deanna, did you see that thing? She's like, it is freaking me out. Like, get through there, get as fast as you can, and we'll get out of here. When you walk in, it was like the coolest thing because it was Santa through the years. And you had some older people in there, and they're like, oh, that's what Santa looked like when I was a kid. And then the Coca-Cola Santa, and you go all the way through, you see Santas from all years gone by, and it was really, really cool. And at the very end, I don't know how to explain it other than explain it. They had like all of the Christmas things. I guess this was a thing at one time where you would get all the Christmas symbols and you plug it in and the different things would move. So it was like snowmen and, I don't know, reindeer and all this kind of stuff moving. And Santa was up there and Santa was twerking. Trust me, you can't unsee it. So, I mean, it's just one of the, I just kept staring, and I was like, what? I go, Santa's twerking. She looked, she's like, oh, what's wrong with this place? So, we went out, and so needless to say, all I could hear in my mind was Deanna going, this better be good, this better be good. I'm like, well, you know, we got, you know, we spent $6 on a 40-cent thing of bean soup, the ham and bean soup, and she was like, I took this ham. We had a spider that she wanted me to kill, I let it live. And then we had creepy Santa guy, and then Santa twerking. So far, the date is going very poorly. And by the way, it was an hour and 20 minutes past Columbus on top of all this, and you know, you've got your list and you got to get everything done. And then we came outside, it was at 6 o'clock, and they let us know, they're like, someone very special is here to light, you know, the light, and announce the person's name, and then the whole place went dark. And all of a sudden, boom, lights came on. And I'm telling you something, and if you've never seen 4 million lights go on at one time, then you need to go to Clifton Mill, because it had 4 million lights there. It takes them 4 months to put these things up, and then they shut everything down, and then across the bridge, they have a covered bridge that everyone walks across to get inside this thing. They did the whole, you know, whatever the TS Trans-Siberian Orchestra thing, where they light it up, dun, 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 that kind of thing, and they're all doing it. It was awesome. It was absolutely amazing. So as we left, we got out in the car, and I go, so what did you think? And she goes, that was really, really good. And all I could think of was, Santa was twerking. How are we? But we all look at things a little bit differently, right? So during Christmas, we kind of look at things a little bit differently. And as we're heading back then, we're going back to Columbus, and this is where, to me, we kind of made a mistake. We're going all the way back to Columbus now to go shopping, and everybody and their mother has made the same decision to shop this evening to finish all of their Christmas shopping. And so we're out there, we go from store to store, and we were doing really well. We had a list, and we checked it twice, and we said, okay, this kid is naughty, and these 3 are nice, and I'll let them figure out who's who between the 4 of them. And so we were going through, and at the end of the night, there was one thing that we couldn't find. And isn't it amazing how, when we get to Christmas, we have all these plans, and you go back and you look at your time, and you're going to get this thing, but if you miss that one thing, you feel like, as a parent, that you've let like the entire Christmas season down. It's one thing for one kid, and he or she will get over it. But for some reason, for us, we don't get over it, do we? We don't get past it. And so for that 2-hour ride home, it was like, we did everything except. And so many times, we focus on those negatives that we can't even see the positives that this season brings to us. And yet, as we rediscover Christmas, and as we dive back into what Christmas is about, we should really see that all that commotion and all that craziness and all the stuff that's going on isn't really what this season is about, is it? It should be about a message that is a personal message for each of us. It should be about a message that God had for each one of us. But sometimes we miss the characters in it because our characters are Santa and Rudolph and Frosty and the Grinch. And really, it shouldn't be them at all, should they? Those are all okay. There's nothing wrong with them. But what what she really be focused on should be the baseline, the foundation, that all those other things go on top of. We're going to dive in today in Luke chapter 2. Luke chapter 1 is where the story is going to pick up. We're going to talk about some of those characters from today. In Luke chapter 1, we start off in actually verse 34. Let me give you a little bit of background as to what's going on. The actual birth of Jesus is being foretold. And so an angel shows up to Mary, and any time that you see an angel show up in the Bible, everybody freaks out. And the reason they freak out is because they show up in this lighted thing and this glorious look, and I mean, it's a heavenly body that is showing up, and they'll show up when you least expect it. And so Mary was not expecting this. She is just a teenage girl who is looking to just live her life. But she, as we'll find out a little bit later, she has been set to be married to a man by the name of Joseph. And so the angel comes and tells her, hey, listen, you're going to have a baby. And this baby isn't going to be of any person. In fact, it's going to be of the Holy Spirit. This is where the story picks up, starting in verse 34. Mary asks this question. How will this be, Mary asked the angel, since I am a virgin? So she's wanting to know, how is it possible that I can have a child when I haven't done, what it takes to have a child? In fact, I've been very honoring. I'm an honoring young lady. And the people within her community know that she's a very honorable young lady. And she's done the right thing. And she's lived her entire life to this point doing what God has intended her to do. And verse 35 says, the angel answered, the Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age, and she who was said to be barren is in her 6th month. So her cousin is Elizabeth. So if you read back the backstory in Luke, you actually read the story about Elizabeth and Zacharias. And Zacharias was the Holy of Holies, guys. It was his time to go into the center part of the temple, when all of a sudden an angel showed up. When the angel showed up, he freaked out. And the angel told him, hey, you're going to have a child. And he was kind of like, what are you talking about? We're old, we're barren, it's just not going to happen. It's just one of those things in life, and we've kind of accepted it. And they're like, nope, you're going to have a child. When you least expect it, God is going to show up. And guess what? God is going to show up. And so because Zacharias had his disbelief, he literally was not able to speak then from that point on. So for the 9 months of pregnancy, this woman had complete silence in the home. And for the men that are sitting here right now, you have no idea what a Christmas gift that is whenever you're pregnant. Especially if you have more than one kid, because your jokes are funny with the first child, and by the 4th child, they are ready to kill you. So if you're on child 3, just know in child 4, you're on your own, okay? So for 9 months, there's no speaking that's taking place in this house. And so it's the angel of the Lord, not the family, that explains this to Mary. It's the angel of the Lord that says, oh, by the way, your cousin, your first cousin, the one that everyone kind of looks up to in the family, it's married to the religious guy, and he's the priest and does all that kind of stuff. They are going to have a baby, which in itself had to take Mary going, oh my goodness, you got to be kidding me. So now I'm having a baby, and she's having a baby, and everyone's going to be looking at her thinking, you're crazy because you're old, there's no way you're going to have a kid. But this is how we're going to look at Mary. You're an absolute humiliation. You are such a disappointment. Don't give me this, God did this, or God did this, and God moved, and all that kind of stuff. You're an absolute disappointment. You're going to have to come out in the middle of the day when no one else is going to get water, because nobody wants to look at you. When people do see you in the marketplace, they're going to make fun of you, and they're going to put you down. And you can stick with whatever story that you have, but we're going to say what we want to say anyway. And she knows at this point that this is what she's going to have to deal with, not just during this pregnancy, but for the rest of her life. And so she has to make a decision. Verse 37 says, for nothing is impossible with God. So that's what we're talking about today. As we rediscover Christmas. Is it possible for us to see God still in Christmas? And the answer is right there, that it's absolutely possible. There's nothing that is impossible with God. There's nothing. And so even with all the commotion and all the craziness and all we look to talk about rediscovering, we can actually do this if we will trust on God and look for God. Because if he can make an old lady who's barren, who isn't going to have kids, who's already moved on to that part of her life, have a child, and if he can make a virgin also have a child, those are two pretty amazing things that only God can do. But what comes with it is, Elizabeth, you're crazy, and what comes with it is, Mary, you're nothing but a major disappointment. And we've all felt that at times. We've all felt like we don't live up. We've all felt like we don't make the grade. We've all felt like I'm not good enough for mom and dad. I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as my brother and sister. I'm not good enough in the eyes of my teachers. I'm not the best at this. My coach looks at me this way. My community looks at me this way. Whatever it might be, we've all felt this at some point in some time. And Mary understood what we all need to understand, which is in verse 38, that I am the Lord's servant. People are going to talk. People are going to put us down. As our walk as a believer, people are going to make fun of it. There are going to be times where they're going to be a voice against it. They're going to be loud about it. They're going to be critical of it, whatever it might be. They're not going to like that you're doing the right things for the right reasons. They're not going to like that you set yourself apart. They're not going to like that you don't want to see the video, or you don't want to watch it, or that you don't want to be in that conversation, or you don't want to put people down, or you don't want to swear. Any of those things. Because it takes each one of us to make that decision that I am the Lord's servant, Mary answered. May it be as you have said. And then the angel left her. Think of that amazing moment for a second. That in one moment she's completely fearful. And in the next moment she's receiving news that no other person in the history of this planet has ever received. And then just like that, she's left alone. She's left alone with her thoughts. She's left alone of what's next. She's left alone of, but I was a good girl. She's left alone of, I've done all the right things, but. She's left alone with what if, what's the next step? Well, the next step that Mary did is she makes the decision to go and visit Elizabeth. And the amazing thing is that we don't even know if she told Joseph. We don't even know if she shared with him. We'll get to him in just a little bit. But she made the decision that I am God's servant. Through the good, through the bad, through the rough times, through the great times, I am God's servant. So she went to the one person that she knew that she could turn to in her life. And it's the same person that the angel shared with her that everyone thinks that she is going to be crazy. Let's go to the next set of verses here. She goes to visit her, they go and they talk. Zacharias can't say anything. And it says, at that time, Mary got ready and hurried into a town, into the hill country of Judea, where she entered Zacharias' home and greeted Elizabeth. So she goes and has a discussion with this lady, this cousin, this aunt, this whatever, however you want to look at it. I'm terrible with knowing cousins from aunts and all that kind of stuff. She goes to visit her, and they go to see each other. Because when she was down the most, she turned to the person she could trust the most that God had brought in her life. So if you're someone today or that right now you're like, man, this Christmas season, it just drags me down. This Christmas season, it beats me up. This Christmas season, I got some news I wasn't expecting. People made a call, people said something, people put me down in a certain way, whatever it might be. There's always this negative darkness during this season. And yet, as the Lord's servant, there's a light that shines that only God can shine. But it's up to us as to choose who to take that to. It could be your spouse. It could be an aunt or an uncle. It could be a grandma or grandpa. It could be someone within your life that shows you a little bit of God. And the more that you do that within your life, it doesn't have to just be during Christmas. The more that person's light shines through you, and then eventually, the more your light will shine through someone else. But at the end of the day, you have to be willing. And Mary, through probably the most difficult of all time things, chose to first be willing by being God's servant. So let's look at the flip side. What about Joseph? So Joseph, here's on the other side, and we're going to fast forward into the second chapter. Joseph, at the beginning, says, the birth of Jesus. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census would be taken of the entire Roman world. If you were here last Sunday night, we took a decree, there was a decree that was made, and we took a census. So everyone that came got to sign in for the census. So your whole family was signed up, and you were part of the census, because we had come to Bethlehem to have this discussion, to be counted, and to enjoy the marketplace and just enjoy one another. So we came back just like Mary and Joseph would have chosen to come back based on something they wanted Something that God told them to do? No, this was actually a decree that had taken place in the land. It says this was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria, and everyone went to his own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and the line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. Let's stop there for a second. We're going to look at this a little bit. He went there with his girl, and they were expected to be married. And once again, she is with child. And everybody knows it. And everybody's aware of it. And everywhere they go, that's the one, and that's the one, and what's wrong with that guy? And if I were him, there's no way. And they should have had her stoned outside of it. And I don't care if she's a teenager. Put her down and make fun of her. And no one knows every day the humiliation and the struggles that they have to go through. But I'll tell you what, Joseph does. And Joseph has to make a decision that during this best Christmas ever that's about to come up, this first Christmas, as to what kind of a man he is going to be. Is he willing to step up and do what God has for him in his life so that his wife and his soon-to-be child and later his children can see? Because it starts before the child has come, and it started before they were going to be married. And so he is coming back to be counted in the first census ever. And in that first census ever, he's probably the one that has a little asterisk next to him. That's the one that they had the child, and yeah, they're going to have the kid, but they're not even married yet. So it's Joseph, whatever his last name, and Mary, whatever her last name is, and they're not really married, but just so we know, let's note that in the census. And so the story continues. It says, so Joseph went to be counted. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time for the baby to be born, came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in clothes and placed him in a manger because there was no room for them at the inn. Let's stop there for a second. Joseph came back to the town to be counted. And whenever you went to the town to be counted, this is where your family was from. So he is walking in with this young teenage girl to a town that is so small that it's only going to have a few kind of business, because the main vocation is shepherding. And so the shepherds have to have a place to stay. And the only place to stay is the inn. And so Joseph is coming back to this town that there's virtually no business in. There's not gas stations, there's not McDonald's, there's not Subways, there's not any of those other kind of things. He's coming back to his town where his family is from. So there's a chance that the people of this inn are his family. His own family could have been the very ones to turn away their family that was coming in just when they needed them the most. And that's probably the most difficult part of Christmas. I've got this crazy side of the family. I've got this normal side of the family. I'm the crazy that came into the family. Oh my goodness, am I going to see this brother-in-law or this sister-in-law, or is this person going to be depressed, or is this person going to be upset, or is this person going to eat all the dessert? Or every year we go through it in our minds. And yet there should be a time that we should be coming together to be counted. And oh, is Aunt so-and-so here? Is Uncle so-and-so here? Is my cousin here? And oh, I'm looking forward to see my brother-in-law. And I brought my kids. And it should be such a joyous time for us to come together. And yet Christmas has gotten so busy and so crazy that we do everything we can sometimes to avoid certain people on Christmas when it's about our family. Because we don't look at them as blessings that God has brought into our lives. And so many times, when that sibling or that person that needs someone comes to us, our response is, hey, I'm really sorry, I don't have any room at the inn for you. But if you go over here, maybe someone will talk to you over here. Or if you go over there, there's no dessert left, but maybe you can get some of those things. But if you go to talk to someone else, or whatever it may be, we don't have room in the inn many times when it comes to our family. And yet as believers, we are called to be that light before others. But until we choose to do so, how in the world will anyone ever come to us? And how in the world will some of our families that aren't sitting here with us right now, ever see God's light if it's not shining? And so they're going to get caught up in all the Christmas lights. And they're going to get caught up in all the blow-up Santas. And they're going to get caught up in all the characters of this day, as opposed to the characters of God's day. And that's on us. I want to help you rediscover Christmas. I know you have crazy people in your family. I'm one of those crazy people in the family. And my whole family has to put up with me. God bless them. You're all thinking that, right? I got you. We're good. We have those people within our lives. But do we have room at the end for them? Think of it this way. When God came into this world, when He sent His Son into this world, there was no room for Him. And it finally got to the point where for this same world that He lived in, there wasn't room for Him. And He was sent away. And yet through it all, He gave us eternity. And that's the greatest gift that anyone could have at Christmas. And it started at this first Christmas, the best Christmas ever. Let's rediscover it. Joseph had to make a decision if he was going to be courageous enough to deal with what his family is doing, and understand being counted, and then to be pushed to the back. It says, verse 7 says, she wrapped him and gave birth to the firstborn son. She wrapped him in clothes and placed him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. Let's go back to Matthew chapter 1. The story's told in a little bit different way. Matthew's a Jew. He's writing to the Jews, so it's very important the way he's writing. Luke was writing to the Greeks when he wrote to Theophilus. They wanted every single detail. So when this story picks up, it says the birth of Jesus Christ foretold. It says, this is how the birth of the Messiah came about. His mother Mary was pledged to be married to Joseph, but before they came together, she was found to be pregnant through the Holy Spirit. Stop it for a second. There's 3 ways, 3 steps, if you look at a biblical marriage that took place in the New Testament. So what you do is you would choose someone, and you would kind of set them up ahead of time, and then you'd have to be married. Okay, I need 2 single people here. Give me a couple single people. Mandy, you're single. Come here. Shannon, come here. Okay, so, all right. They didn't know I'm doing this, and right now they're so embarrassed, and I'm loving this. I enjoy this kind of thing. Okay, so here we go. So this is Chandler. This is my son. This is Amanda. You're gonna hold hands here. Okay, no problem. All right. Now, just so you know, Gina and I have talked, and I've given her a bag of gold and 2 goats and a new brown sweatshirt for Andy for Christmas. And you guys are going to be married. So we're going to have Kristen go ahead and get you guys married right here before everything. So that's how it was, yeah. So they would take place, except for they didn't have a Bible. So basically, they just say, you guys go ahead and kiss and say I do, and then. Did you get their faces by any chance? Okay, good. All right, now. So this is what took place. This whole thing, no, this is what took place. They're engaged now. Okay, so these 2 engaged, so announce this to all your friends, put it on social media, everywhere you go, okay? Your baseball team's going to be really excited to know that. But here's what happened. They had this time together engagement. And as they got to know each other a little bit, they're kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I can be married. And she's not quite my type. He's not quite my type. I hate his mustache. I don't like it when girls wear these little things on top of their head, even though I like them, I can bounce the things up. So the bun, okay, whatever it might be. So they decide, listen, we're going to be friends, okay? But the engagement is off. So you go back to your mom. I want my gold, my goats, and you keep the brown sweatshirt. Nobody wants those anyway, okay? And you head back and sit down. We're going to eat later, all right? That's how the engagement worked. That was process 1. But there was process 2, which is what most of your Bibles are saying, which is called betrothed. Once you were betrothed, you were getting married. It was a year time frame that took place. Mary and Joseph were to be betrothed to one another. So they've gone past the engagement phase. They've gone through, yeah, I like him, he's groovy. I like her, she's hot. All that other kind of stuff. We're going to go on that path. And so they make the decision. We're in the betrothed phase. And so for the next year, we're going to plan the whole wedding out. You get your mom together. Let's go where the place is going to be. And let's serve chicken and lamb and do all those other kind of things at the reception. All that stuff's taking place in the next year. There's a lot of planning when it comes to a wedding. They're in the betrothal phase. And the next step is marriage. Now here's the interesting thing. They haven't been married yet. So by not being married, that means they don't live together. They're very careful in their time together. It's going to be around family, all those other kind of things. But all of a sudden, she comes up and she's pregnant. And so if you're Joseph, you're sitting back and going, something's not quite right here. Because during the betrothal stage, we're not supposed to be together, but there's kind of this thing that you're not supposed to be together with anyone else, and I'm not either. And something happened. So they were betrothed. So it says, because Joseph, her husband, was faithful to the law, and yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace. So we get a chance to see that Joseph is a stand-up guy. He's just wasted 2 years of his life. He just went through this whole engagement thing. He's going through this whole betrothal thing. He's got to be asking himself, man, I get to the point where maybe there's something wrong with me. He starts asking questions, and, was I too short? Was I too tall? Was my hair too wavy? Should I shave the mustache? Whatever it might be. He's asking all these questions. But he understands the law, and it says he does not want to publicly disgrace her because he's that kind of a guy. He's a stand-up guy. Here's the next thing. And yet did not want to expose her to public disgrace. He had in mind to divorce her quietly. Hold on a second. The word divorce is in the Bible. Yes, it is, multiple times. But they're not married. But see, it's not marriage like we see marriage nowadays. There's a 3-step process. Today it's a 2-step. We get engaged and we get married. Because they were betrothed. Because they were following God's way. They were considered married at this point, even though they hadn't taken the step. So now because of this, he has to make the choice as to how to divorce her. Not when to, not where to, but how to divorce her. So in his mind, he's already made the decision, I'm going to do it privately and not publicly. Because I don't want her to be disgraced. She really is a nice lady, and yeah, I wasted 2 years of my life, but there's someone else out there. I have no idea who it's going to be, but I'm going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And because he has that kind of a heart, and that's the heart that God gave him. And that's when God steps in. He says he's going to have in mind to divorce her quietly. But after he had considered this, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and they will call him Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him and took Mary home as his wife. But he did not consummate their marriage until she gave birth to a son, and he gave him the name Jesus. The same Jesus that we all love and serve today. The same Jesus that showed up on the best Christmas ever. And had it not been for a woman that was willing to do what God called her to do, and had it not been for a man that was going to be courageous no matter what, no matter how his family put him down, no matter how he was beat up, no matter how people looked at him, and then on top of having to come back before his entire family, he chose to be courageous. Because that's what God called him to do. And men, that's what we are called to do as well. We're to be courageous during the difficult times. We're to be courageous during the dark times. We're to be courageous when our wives struggle. We're to be courageous when our kids have a rough time. We are to be courageous and to lead spiritually. Because had he chosen to divorce her, she would have been left completely alone. She's already humiliated. She's already disgraced. But one guy chose to listen to what God had to say and chose to be courageous above all. Now, the next person I'm not going to share with you about, we're going to go to the next set of verses. A guy named Herod. The wise men come and they're like, oh, they're going to kill all these kids, and they're going to go through and they go through Bethlehem and they kill these kids. But Joseph goes to Egypt to leave a different way, and the wise men go a different way, and they do all these things so that the entire story could finish and be told. But Joseph knows it's time to leave here. They've been given all of these gifts, and they take all these gifts, and they probably sell them to Egypt in the marketplace so they can live for the next couple of years until they have to come back. And Herod goes about, and he kills everybody. Now, there's always a bad guy in the story, right? We always have a bad guy. Sometimes, as we were talking about the family, there's that bad guy couldn't even be with our family, that dragged us down and beats us up. But there's always that bad guy. Herod was a bad guy. He was the bad guy, and had all these kids killed because they were looking for the king of the Jews, and he was the king of the Jews. And you know what happened after he had all those kids killed? Within about a year or two, at the most, he died. So all this stuff he was trying to lift himself up for, oh my goodness, I'm the king, and he died anyway. Okay? So let's head back to this part of the story. The angel of the Lord. We're right back, completely back to the beginning. So we're back to week 1. And the angel has now shown up, and it says, and there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. They were freaking out. If you're a teenager right now, if you're between the ages of 13 and 19 inclusive, would you please stand up? Go ahead, stand up. Don't be afraid. Okay. First thing is this. Mary had Jesus when she was a teenager. The second thing is, how many of you guys have had a minimum wage job? Good stuff, right? People make fun of you, they rip on you, they, throw things at you, they call you names, do all that kind of stuff, and you're thinking, are you kidding me? This is what I get to deal with for the next 50 years of my life, or 60 years, whatever it might be. Well, I've been in minimum wage jobs at some point. These were the minimum wage job people right here. The shepherds. They were at the bottom of the rung when it comes to working. They were blue collar, and there were just guys out there taking care of this. There were better shepherds, but those better shepherds that were overseeing them, that were older, they were in the inn. They were chilling out. The ones who were at night, that were out here in the fields, right here. This is who you're looking at. The minimum wage teenage people. This is who God came to start to send his message. Now, let's be honest here, parents, all right? Sorry, kids, you're all standing now. How many of you trust your kids that if you give them a message, that you're going to get the right message back when they take it to someone else? My son raised his hand, is standing in the back. Right? I want you to do this, this, and this. And they go, that, and that. Parents, we there? Right? Okay? Teenagers, you can all have a seat. God trusted them. God trusted them with his message. God trusted him with the message that we all still believe and follow to this day. Every one of us. And the message is this. The angel said, do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for who? All the people. For all of us. God's message was never meant to be kept to ourselves. And too many times when it comes, especially during this Christmas season, when it comes to that message, we don't want to share it. And too many times, there's so many things, other things that are taking place, that the message gets pushed down and pushed to the side. And we don't want to hear it. And sometimes it's so bright and so noisy with everything taking place that we can't hear it. And it's not even a part of the message anymore. And yet God's message was for you, and it was for me. It was for your non-believer that you go to school with. It was for your coach that swears all the time. It was for every person within your work, every person within your community. It was for all the people. Go ahead, Jason, continue. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in clothes and lying in a manger. We'll find him lying in a manger. Go ahead and let's finish this up. Make sure I have it done. Good, we have it done. Okay. Stop here for a second. Who still has Christmas shopping to do? Be honest. Okay? Who still has Christmas gifts to wrap? All right? Whose stomach is gurgling right now and you're thinking about what you're going to eat next? And listen, hey, listen. Don't feel bad about this. This is, I want you to be honest. We're building on the truth here. Who's worried? Who's worried that the gift that they got someone else isn't going to be good enough? Who's worried that we didn't send, or you didn't give exactly what it is that they wanted on the list. So they have a list of 5 things, and you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't give them everything, and you're worried about not getting them everything that they wanted. Just me? Who missed that one gift this year when they didn't get to give it, and they couldn't find it? See, there's always something in it, isn't it? Who here during this Christmas season shared the gift that God gave each one of us from the best Christmas ever? See, we're so caught up in everything that takes place in our world that at the end of the day, we're really not willing servants like Mary was, are we? And we're really not nearly as courageous as we want to be when it comes to our faith. And yet God sent a child, and He sent the message to these young people. And the message they took, they were astonished, and they couldn't wait to tell everybody. And they did. So what happens? What happens in between? I'm going to take you back to your favorite Christmas right now. Jason's going to go ahead and play this video. I want you to just go back. You be one of the people in this video. Go ahead.
It's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's stressful all around.
There's people hustling and bustling and can't get nowhere.
I have to wrap up presents. I have to do all the preparing.
Then there's hanging with the relatives.
Things are just not as simple as they were.
It's not sad, but it don't have that.
My name is Chris Jones, and I'm a professional dentist.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, I'm Chris.
Doug.
Elena.
Eric, come on in. What do you remember about Christmas? Christmas Eve seemed like it was the longest night in history.
We got downstairs together, we had to hold hands and walk down the stairs all together.
I wanted some skates. And my mother said, well, I don't know if Santa Claus will bring them this time.
We got to the basement, and there was this huge robot.
But we peeked down there and we seen this big box. We knew it was the drum set. So we high-fived each other like, yes, I'm gonna have you relive your favorite holiday. I would love to do that again.
Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen.
Magic. It would just be like having magic again.
Here, in my hand, visualize a clock. We're gonna go back in time to 60 or 50 or 40. Let any tension, any anxiety just drop out of your body, sleeping all the way down. Sleep all the way down. In a moment, when you wake up, it's gonna be Christmas morning, and you're a happy little kid, you're 5 years old. 1, 2, 3, wide awake. Christmas morning.
Oh, man.
In a moment when you wake up, you're gonna forget everything that ever happened. Come back to us slowly now. Wide awake. I want to show you something you might not believe. Do you remember much about what happened?
I don't actually remember.
It's me. I don't recall doing that though. Oh my God, look at me.
I thought I never would ever see that again.
That's the young me.
It's been a while since I saw the kids on Christmas.
That's amazing. It's like I get to have Christmas like a kid again.
It's gonna be in my heart as long as I live.
disclaimer since this is one of them. However, wouldn't it be great if we could just capture that joy again? We didn't have to wait for grandkids. We didn't have to wait for the latest next thing or whatever. That we personally didn't get so stuck in, I've got to wrap these presents and I have to do this and the food and everything has to be perfect. That just God brought us here together at this time with my family to be counted and to enjoy Christmas the way God intended for us to enjoy Christmas. The gifts that we give from our heart. And the gifts that we share from our heart. And that we don't worry about what's on a list. We focus upon a child. We focus upon a childlike faith. And we rediscover Christmas every year. For these last few weeks, we had a chance to hear from an angel, the messenger. His message for you and for me is that God is to be recognized, but He promises us peace through His word. We learned from the wise men that God will bring a sign. If we're willing to listen, and we're willing to look, God will show up right where He's always been. He's there. And today, we learned through Mary that it's always best if we choose to submit completely to God's will. Sometimes it's tough. And from Joseph, hey, it's our choice as to whether or not to be courageous enough to step up through it. To the shepherds, guess what? This message is for everyone. He started with some wonderful teenagers. Some of you have wonderful teenagers. Don't blink. Don't be in college. And don't blink again because they're going to be graduating. Enjoy them to the fullest. And then sadly, we're all going to have a hair in our life that's going to try and get in there and stop you from doing what God intended you to do. But when God has a plan in your life, nothing will get in the way. We're going to finish this last verse. This is Luke chapter 2, verse 19. It says, "But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart." See, the first Christmas ever was the most personal. It's how God intended it. And all the gifts and all the lights and all the noise are just gifts and lights and noise. Especially when we forget that when we rediscover Christmas, it's about a gift that God gave us through a child. And a message that came through His angel, through young people. Imagine what it would look like if you could rewind it and be as astonished as they were that first Christmas. Because if we could garner that, we could garner that. Imagine whatever Christmas would look like. Imagine whatever day would look like in your life and in mine. My prayer is that tomorrow, tonight, you will rediscover Christmas with the gifts that God has given you in your life. And you will look at it in such a way that would make every child happy, especially the child in you. So bow your heads, please, with me. So, Heavenly Father, as we come to you, God, at this time, God, I thank you so much for your word. I thank you for the message that you share with us. God, I thank you for the characters within this story that mean so much to each one of us. And God, we all struggle at times to miss that meaning. We don't want to. So God, as Mike and the band starts to play some music here a little bit, God, help us to just take a little bit of time with you. Help us to talk with you and have a little conversation, to rest in you and to know that this can be our best Christmas ever. Well, actually, God, it could be our second best Christmas ever. Because you gave us the best Christmas ever. We thank you for the light, that gift of your Son, Jesus. Lord, help us to make it personal because you made it personal. It's in your name we pray. Amen.